From Isaiah assuring Hezekiah that Jerusalem could withstand Assyrian forces, to the re-establishment of Israel and its connection to the end of days, here are 5 remarkable prophecies in the Bible that came true. Neo-Assyrian king Sennacherib's prism stone details his many conquests around the globe. However, one inscription shows how, despite having a massive fleet, access to the best military equipment of his time, and overall having everything and anything that'd lead to victory in any battle, Sennacherib failed against King Hezekiah. But what did King Hezekiah of the Kingdom of Judah have in his arsenal that Sennacherib didn't? Besides faith, there is quite literally nothing. The story goes that around 701 BCE, Sennacherib led a powerful revolt against the expansion of the Kingdom of Judah. You have to remember that the Kingdom of Judah couldn't hold back Assyrian expansion based on numbers alone. They knew the facts and decided to pay an annual tribute to the Assyrian king. Despite this, Sennacherib wanted complete control over the land separating Assyria from Egypt. His expansion was rapid, and, in the end, only the capital of the Kingdom of Judah, Jerusalem, remained free from Sennacherib's control. Understandably, Hezekiah panicked. He sent out word to Sennacherib that he was willing to pay any amount needed to keep Jerusalem safe. According to the Hebrew Bible, Hezekiah essentially stripped the national treasury of everything and laid out 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold that he had to strip from the doorposts of Solomon's temple. But Sennacherib didn't care about treasures. He already had enough of them. He wanted complete control over the Kingdom of Judah, no matter the price. Feeling defeated, Hezekiah told his people to prepare themselves for imminent defeat. While the people and Hezekiah went into a state of mourning, waiting for the apparently inevitable, the prophet Isaiah stayed unbothered. He assured Hezekiah that Sennacherib wouldn't win under any circumstances. When Hezekiah asked him if the people of Jerusalem should take up arms, fight a seemingly losing battle, or do anything at all, Isaiah said no. Isaiah asked Hezekiah to rest easy, knowing that the Assyrian army could never invade Jerusalem. And he was right. On the night of the siege, 185,000 of Sennacherib's men died for unknown reasons. The second book of Kings describes the weird twist of events as angels being sent from above to attack the Assyrian army. While the way they were defeated remains largely contested, we have the book of Isaiah to look back on. He'd predicted for a long time that the Assyrians wouldn't take control of the Kingdom of Judah. Isaiah had advocated for years that the king shouldn't pay tribute to the Assyrian Empire. They'd never win anyway. 50 years after the end of Isaiah's ministry, however, Jeremiah, or the weeping prophet, began his ministry. He's credited with writing the book of Jeremiah and the book of Kings. In the book of Jeremiah, the prophet predicted the fall of Jerusalem when the Babylonian Empire would come and besiege the capital of the Kingdom of Judah. Jeremiah's time overlapped with Ezekiel's and Daniel's. Ezekiel in particular was devastated at how the people had lost their way, even to the point that they'd take part in pagan rituals within the temples. Jeremiah referred to Babylon as a boiling pot in the north, and he urged the king of Judah, Jehoiakim, not to revolt against the Babylonian king, Nebuchadnezzar. According to the prophet, a Babylonian siege was destined to be the fate of the people who'd lost their way. Jehoiakim began the revolt and his son, Jeconiah, continued it. As Jeremiah had predicted, Nebuchadnezzar led an army into Jerusalem and took control. Major devastation hadn't happened at this point, and Nebuchadnezzar took Jeconiah and a few influential people from Jerusalem back to Babylon as exiles. He also placed Jeconiah's uncle Zedekiah as the new king. Again, Jeremiah urged the new king not to revolt against Babylon because it was a losing fight. At the time, the Babylonian Empire was at war with the Egyptian Empire. Zedekiah, like Jehoiakim, irked Nebuchadnezzar when he took a pro-Egyptian stance, stood by the pharaoh Hophra, and stopped paying tribute to Babylon. Jeremiah and other influential men urged Zedekiah not to anger Nebuchadnezzar any further. They argued that the Babylonian king had already laid siege once and stripped the temples of all their worth. He wouldn't take kindly to a second revolt. Zedekiah, however, had been urged by Hophra that the Egyptian Empire would stand behind Jerusalem and continue the revolt. Jeremiah had predicted the fall of Jerusalem and a catastrophic fate for the people who revolted. He was right. In 589 BC, Nebuchadnezzar led a second siege, and this time he destroyed the temples, burned the cities, and killed thousands of people. Even Zedekiah, who'd fled to escape persecution, was captured and made to watch his son's beheading before he had his eyes gouged out by the Babylonians. Nebuchadnezzar took several influential men from Jerusalem as exiles back with him to Babylon. Daniel interpreted two of Nebuchadnezzar's dreams that signaled the fall of the Babylonian Empire. The first was when Nebuchadnezzar dreamt of a throne made up of various metals. The second was a dream where a ghostly hand was writing scriptures in Belshazzar's chambers. According to Daniel, the throne signified how several empires would come in the subsequent years to take over the land that was controlled by the Babylonians. The ghostly figure was a sign that Babylon was about to fall. This did indeed happen. In 539 BC, the Neo-Babylonian Empire admitted defeat to the Achaemenid Persian Empire. This was related to the dream of the ghostly hand. Accordingly, Daniel had predicted that while Belshazzar feasted and enjoyed the temple treasures from Jerusalem, his time was nearly over. As far as the throne of various metals was concerned, Persian rule was ultimately replaced by Greek rule in the region, which ended when the Romans took over. Ultimately, the once magnificent Babylonian Empire was nothing more than rubble. Then, at a time when it seemed like all hope was lost, and the people of Jerusalem would only ever serve the people of richer and more powerful kingdoms such as Egypt, Ezekiel came with a humbling revelation. Reportedly, the prophet had received a revelation 93 times, indicating the fall of Egypt. Ezekiel was also referred to as the Son of Man, and he predicted that the Egyptian Empire would soon become desolate. He repeated the revelation several times over, and it ignited some hope in the displaced people of Jerusalem, who were now living as slaves under Egyptian rule. More specifically, Ezekiel predicted the fall of the city of Tyre. While the fall of the complete state of Egypt is contested by several, some believe that Muslim expansion led the great Egyptian empire to become insignificant. There's a unanimous understanding that Nebuchadnezzar did ultimately take over the thriving city of Tyre. The siege lasted for a total of 13 years. Ezekiel had predicted as much, actually. He'd revealed that the Babylonians would take over the thriving city after a years-long siege. The Babylonian king, Nebuchadnezzar, had attempted to take over all of Egypt. However, he never could. He did, however, defeat the Egyptians in two major wars. One would, of course, be the siege of Tyre that lasted from 586 to 573 BC, and the other was the Battle of Carchemish in 605 BC. Arguably, the book of Ezekiel saw at least one of its prophecies come true, but in a stricter sense, Nebuchadnezzar had weakened the Egyptian empire to a point where it never truly reclaimed its former glory. Of course, it wasn't the smoldering mess that Ezekiel had promised. But that wasn't the only prophecy from the book of Ezekiel that ended up coming true. The people of the former kingdom of Judah had watched their homes plundered, their temples burned, and their people killed. All this happened within a relatively short period of time. The Assyrians came first, plundered the north of the kingdom of Israel, and displaced several people. The Babylonian expansion also saw several Jews leave their land to find homes elsewhere. In 70 BCE, the Romans plundered anything that remained of the former kingdom and stripped the temples of all their worth. It wouldn't have been a stretch to say that the people of the former kingdom of Israel had made their peace with the fact that there wasn't a home to ever come back to. Ezekiel wasn't the only person who promised them that they'd find their way back to the kingdom. The book of Jeremiah also indicated that the former kingdom would be restored, and the displaced people would come back home. Now, has this prophecy been fulfilled? Yes, but when exactly? You see, some people argue that the former kingdom was restored after the Second Temple was established. Others, however, believe that the prophecy was fulfilled in modern times with the creation of the State of Israel. In any event, the prophecy did come true, but it also came with the imminent threat of the end of days. We believe that the second coming of Christ follows the restoration of the kingdom of Israel. So, from the re-establishment of Israel and its connection to the end of days, to Isaiah assuring Hezekiah that Jerusalem could withstand Assyrian forces, those were 5 remarkable prophecies in the Bible that came true.